and welcome to another episode of The Word for Kids. I'm Jamie, and I'm guiding you through the book of Exodus in a series of 20 episodes. We've been talking about some of the plagues God sent upon Egypt when Pharaoh refused to let the Israelite people go. First, the water turned to blood. Then, frogs came and covered the land. Next, it was gnats, then flies. Next came the plague of the livestock. Then the plague of boils, and finally the plague of hail. Over and over, Pharaoh promised he would let the people go if Moses would pray to have the plague taken away. And over, he went back on his word and did not let the people go. Let's find out what happens next. Are you ready for today's adventure? Let's go. You would think that after all Pharaoh had seen of God's power, he would have had enough and just let the people go. But the Bible says his heart was unyielding, which means he would not give up. He stubbornly refused to let the Israelites go and worship, and because of this, the plagues kept coming. God told Moses that Pharaoh and his officials' hearts were hardened so that God could demonstrate his power through these signs. Moses and the Israelites would be able to tell their children and their grandchildren about how God had dealt with the Egyptians, and everyone would know that he was the Lord. He told Moses to go to Pharaoh yet again. This time he said, "This is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says. How long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go so that they may worship me. If you refuse to let them go, I will bring locusts into your country. They will cover the face of the ground so that it cannot be seen. They will devour what little you have left after the hail, including every tree that is growing in your fields. They will fill your houses and those of all your officials and all the Egyptians, something neither your parents nor your ancestors have ever seen, from the day they settled in this land till now." Locusts are big bugs that look a lot like grasshoppers. They eat plants and often come in huge groups, so they can do a lot of damage to the land. After Moses warned Pharaoh, he turned and left him. Even Pharaoh's officials at this point were getting frustrated with Pharaoh. "How long will this man be a snare to us? Let the people go so that they may worship the Lord their God. Do you not yet realize that Egypt is ruined?" So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh again. "Go, worship the Lord your God," he told them, "but tell me who will be going." Moses replied, "We will go with our young and our old, our sons and our daughters, our flocks and our herds, because we are celebrating a festival to the Lord." Pharaoh was convinced they were trying to do something evil. "No," he said, "have only the men go." Then Moses and Aaron were driven away from Pharaoh. Since Pharaoh did not do as God told him to do, the plague came as he promised it would. Moses stretched out his staff over Egypt, and the Lord sent an east wind across Egypt all day and night. By the next morning, the wind had brought along with it the locusts. Just as God said they would, the locusts devoured everything. There was no fruit left on trees, and nothing green remained in the land of Egypt. Pharaoh again called for Moses and Aaron. "I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. Forgive my sin. Pray to the Lord to take away this deadly plague." So Moses prayed to the Lord, and God sent a west wind. Every locust was swept up in the wind and carried into the Red Sea. There was not a single locust left in Egypt. But guess what? Once again, as soon as the plague was gone, Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not let the people go. Then God said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand toward the sky, so that darkness spreads over Egypt, darkness that can be felt." So Moses stretched out his hand toward the sky, and total darkness covered Egypt for 3 days. No one could see anyone else or move about for 3 days. Yet all the Israelites had light in the places where they lived. This plague must have been especially terrifying. While there are so many things in life we may never see coming or never understand, one thing that is constant is the rising of the sun. No matter what happens in the night, we know that when we wake up in the morning, the sun will rise and shine. It has done so every day of our lives. Can you imagine how scary it would be if you woke up tomorrow and the sun never rose? That is part of what it means to feel the darkness. So, when even the sun did not shine for 3 days, Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron again. "Go worship the Lord. Even your women and your children may go with you. Only leave your flocks and herds behind." Here, Pharaoh was showing his fear and understanding of the Lord's power, but he still would not fully surrender his control. Moses answered him, "You must allow us to have sacrifices and burnt offerings to present to the Lord our God. Our livestock too must go with us. Not a hoof is to be left behind. We have to use some of them in worshiping the Lord our God, and until we get there, we will not know what we are to use to worship the Lord." Again, Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he would not let the people go. Not only this, but he also warned Moses, "Get out of my sight. Make sure you do not appear before me again. The day you see my face, you will die." Moses said to him, "I will never appear before you again." Now the Lord had told Moses that one more plague would come upon Egypt, and when it did, Pharaoh would let the people go. This plague was the saddest of them all. At about midnight, the Lord would go throughout Egypt, and every firstborn son would die, including Pharaoh's own son. There would be loud wailing, which is crying, throughout Egypt, worse than there had ever been or would ever be again. But among the Israelites, not even a dog would bark. And that would be how they would see that God made a distinction between the people of Egypt and his Israelites. That's where the story ends for today. We'll talk more about this difficult topic in our next episode, but for now, it's time for the word of the day.
Today's word of the day is decisions. Decisions are choices that we make that can be right or wrong, good or bad, or easy or difficult. Decisions.
In the story of Moses and Pharaoh's interactions together, we have seen Pharaoh make the decision over and over again to sin and refuse to obey God. Every day, we all have decisions to make. Some of them aren't too big of a deal, like the choice about what socks to wear or what flavor cereal to eat for breakfast. Others are a little more important, like deciding whether to listen to your teacher when she asks you to be quiet, or choosing whether to join in when your friends are making fun of another kid. Sometimes our decisions mostly affect just ourselves, but often the choices we make affect the people around us. From our story, Pharaoh's bad choices to disobey God meant all the people in Egypt whom he was responsible for suffered from these terrible plagues. Learning to make good decisions and think about how others will be impacted by your choices is an important part of growing up and following God. As you go throughout your day, make it a point to think more about the decisions you face and ask yourself if you're making the right choice. Now it's time for the verse to remember. This week's verse is Exodus 15:6. Your right hand, Lord, was majestic in power. Your right hand, Lord, shattered the enemy. One more time. Your right hand, Lord, was majestic in power. Your right hand, Lord, shattered the enemy. Exodus 15:6. That's all the time we have for this episode. I can't wait to see you again soon for another episode of The Word for Kids.